I'm Paul Cashmere. This is the Noise 11 Interviews from Home series, and today we hear from Dave Faulkner of the Hoodoo Gurus, and the Gurus' most political song to date, Hung Out to Dry. Welcome to Dave Faulkner from the Hoodoo Gurus. Good to have you
Thank
back.
you. So good to be here, wherever I am and wherever you are.
Quite the controversial song to be talking about this time.
Yeah.
Just to give everybody a little dose of what we're talking about here. That's a bit of what we've been seeing up on our television screens and on our computers of recent. Quite excellent timing.
Well, that's kind of what happened. I wrote the song quite recently, and because it originally started as a B-side. We had these two songs that we were looking at for our next single, and we had planned, later this year for a single, then a single early next year, and we're still sticking to that plan. But we wanted to record another song that we just throw on the B-side for a bit of fun for people, and this is what I wrote. And both lyrically, but also musically. Musically, it kept kind of growing, and we're going, hey, it's a bit good for a B-side. It's kind of becoming a sort of powerful song. And then of course, the subject matter as well. It's for a whole lot of reasons, just seemed to be that, what the hell? Here we are stuck in COVID lockdown. We can't play a gig. Probably won't be able to play for 12 months for all we know. So we thought, rather than, have a song buried on the B-side of the single, let's just release this song as a streaming track right now. And it can still come out as a B-side of the next single when we have a vinyl release, because it takes months to get those things pressed up in Europe. So either way, we couldn't have had that out as quickly, as we have right now with a streaming release. So it just seemed to be, let's just make it come out now. People can listen to this for a bit of, another taste of what we do. And it's kind of things have caught us a little bit unawares in some ways.
Yeah, because it's quite a controversial song. And at one point, there were a lot of protest songs in rock and roll. We don't tend to hear a lot of protest songs. So it's sort of going back to challenging the audience lyrically, isn't it?
It is a little bit. I mean, we weren't trying to be controversial. I mean, I'm surprised how controversial it's proved to be for some people, because to me, it's not even political. I mean, I don't think Trump's a politician. I think he's a fucking shyster and a criminal who's in charge of a country, yes, and represents a party. But what are his policies? Nothing, other than purely to get himself power and money and to stay elected. Everything else he's done has been completely non-existent to my mind. So for me, it's just talking about an absolute fuckwit that, I would think no one would particularly have regard for, other than people that are a bit gullible. And, unfortunately, there's quite a lot of those people around. They've invested a lot of their self-esteem in thinking that this guy represents something that represents them, and it's bullshit, but they bought it hook, line and sinker. But, I can't change that. All I can do is say what I think about the man, and I think he's a complete shyster, and the sooner he's gone, the better.
I think it's also speaking towards something a lot scarier than that even. The fact that somebody like that could get into the most powerful position in the world is one thing, but there are still, after 4 years, 34% of Americans that still accept that is okay behaviour.
Well, maybe there's that many. I mean, polls, I never trust any polls because, they're conducted by private organisations to get, and often they're massaged to get the result they want. But there is no doubt he enjoys still a hell of a lot of support. And there are people in Australia. I mean, that's what's blowing my mind, is that people here who aren't really in the middle of all that sort of, polarized conflict over there about, are you right or are you left? And, blah, 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 all this sort of crap that's been running for years in their media. You think people here have a bit of emotional distance from it and be a bit more clear-headed, but there are some people who've, bought into it. And I'll just say one thing quickly. To me, it's a little bit like the syndrome where someone's on death row, they're and there'll be some women writing, proposing marriage, and certain people are just want to be involved and feel like they're part of something, and they relate to it on they feel kind of personally like that makes me special because I'm in there, I'm along with them and I'm connected to that notoriety or whatever. But for me, yeah, definitely the feeling I've had is, when I was a little kid, I was born in the end of the 50s and my father fought in World War II. And all my life as a kid, you see these movies about the war and documentaries, and you think, how the hell did anyone buy that bullshit that Adolf Hitler was putting out. I mean, surely they must have seen him as a total fraud. But no, people really, I mean, admittedly, he got in a bit like Trump, on a minority way. And then once he was in, he kind of manipulated things and put everyone in jail and, made it so he couldn't get rid of him, made himself dictator, which this guy is showing similar signs of trying to do. But, to see that in front of your eyes, that, that people could be so taken in by what is so obviously just, a con, it just kind of shocked me. And it's a real education too.
It's kind of weird, isn't it, when you think that, once upon a time when that was happening, as you've been talking about historically, they didn't have access to information. We've got access to unlimited information, yet people still have their eyes shut.
That's the problem, as we know. The internet is the really big problem. I think this is actually a part of a real war. I mean, I think we are at war with China and Russia. This is people think I'm a crackpot now when I say these things, but I think that they are they're using our own minds against us. They're sapping us from the inside, our societies, by feeding us with bullshit. There was stats about the Keep America Open, protests. Remember, people were going, protesting, how dare you shut down my pub or whatever. And, it was kind of crazy because, obviously it's in the middle of a health crisis and they're trying to stop people infecting each other and creating a disaster. But all these people thinking it's some kind of like infringement of my freedom and my liberty. And, yes, I'm afraid it is, There are some things you're not allowed to do. Like you can't, yell fire in a crowded, cinema. That's a famous, old saying, where you can't cause a stampede, even though you have the right, you have the freedom to say whatever you like. When you say something that's really dangerous to people's safety, you're actually restricted from doing that. And, this idea of freedom is something that's unbound and never, shall be constrained because that's tyranny is bullshit. We all have a responsibility to each other and collectively and individually. Anyway, so this open, Keep America Open movement, 50% of the traffic on the internet, on social media, on that whole period was from bots.
Wow.
So some people were very invested in having America catch this virus and spread it throughout their community. And, and you got to say, malevolent state actors are the obvious suspects in this. Where, to see America collapse as a global power to fight, the oppression of China or Russia is, obviously a very good outcome for these people. They get to exercise their power unhindered. We're seeing what's been going on with, NATO has been weakened and all these different things, right through the Trump presidency have been completely playing into the hands of these people. And, I just don't think it's an accident.
So by comparison, we have relatively well-behaved politicians in this country, I guess, on both sides.
Well, the same forces are at play in Australia, not just the people that are following it through their little internet connection and going, I wish I was a Trumper and I really believe in this man and he's my idol, whatever. No, there's more than that. We have the same powers that be. We've seen Pauline Hanson, that was early on, but it's, that same movement is still there, with the gun lobby, basically trying to funnel money into reactionary parties and create an undue influence on government. The Hunters and Shooters Party, what the hell are they about, But they use their little bits of power in the Senate to kind of, have undue influence. And we're seeing, in the right-hand side of politics, it's been a thing that's been going on in America since the 80s, a very concerted effort by religious fundamentalists to infiltrate the Republican Party and take it over from the inside, and also like school boards and government things, positions. So basically to have an undue influence over democracy, because it used to be back in the 70s. There used to be a saying about the moral majority. Remember that term, which all these televangelists were trying to promote. To me, it's proving what they are now when they see that the person they're supporting, Trump, and how immoral a person is. They're the immoral minority who are trying to have an outsized influence over our societies and to basically turn us into theocracies. And the Liberal Party, for example, in Melbourne, there's 3 branches that I believe are controlled by very fundamentalist churches, one by the Mormon Church and 2 by Hillsong, where they've been branch stacked. And this influences our government at a grassroots level. Look at our Prime Minister. He's a member of the Pentecostal church. This is a church where members of that religion and that sect believe that God speaks to them through gibberish spoken by one of their congregation who can just talk in gibberish,
Mm.
and someone else will have the power of interpretation and interpret that gibberish and say, God said, vote for Trump, or God said, do this, do that. Like, this is directly a telephone line to heaven, apparently, and they're getting the received wisdom. And so, how do you argue against that? That's completely fanciful. But this is our Prime Minister who's, he's actually in some way believes this stuff. So you've got to question the kind of moral compass that this man has and who he serves and what he really believes, because that to me is quite bizarre. In another situation, it was a street person, a homeless person, you would lock them up and put them on drugs and say, you're having a bit of an episode, sir. You think you're talking to Jesus, you need help. But here we are, this is a person that's going to be like going, oh, it's a very Christian man and he has, very strongly held beliefs and he's very God-fearing. So anyway, I'm very, very controversial here, but I find it incredible. So, we're seeing like, with Tony Abbott, with his very conservative Catholic, relationships and Opus Dei, I think, these are not normal people that just go, I go to church and I have live by a moral code. These are people that have quite extreme beliefs that are in charge of our government. So I fear for that. I think that we have quite a lot of that hidden in Australia. That it's not, because people don't want to talk about it, because all the better to basically to do what they want without having too much light cast upon them.
It's an excuse to be an extremist and a supremist, isn't it?
Well, it is. We are seeing it. What's happening with climate science. I mean, that's just boggles the mind. Globally, there is so much money being poured in to discredit the science, but 98% of scientists, believe that there is climate change. Just as 98% of people believe there is a thing called evolution. And there are people that go, oh yes, but 2% don't. And, there's always room for doubt. And, science, they may change their mind because they've got a new theory later on. This is what idiots think, that theories in science equals opinions in public, in politics or in whatever else in your life. It's not the same thing. Theories are propositions that have evidence, that are tested. And the fact that there is so much evidence that proves that climate change is happening and is real, and the acidification of the ocean is beyond doubt. I mean, these things are just ludicrous that people could even question them, but they do. And they do it because they think it's their political right to actually have an opinion rather than to actually believe in facts and science, which are supported by evidence. You don't need evidence for your fucking opinions in politics or religion or whatever. But science is actually disprovable. And theories that can't be disproved aren't ones worth propagating. But in politics, it's the exact opposite.
And unfortunately, on a global
I am
basis,
getting on my high horse today. I better calm down a bit. Sorry about that.
I think it's a pretty worthwhile topic to be talking about. It's certainly taken Brexit off the top
I'm digging myself a deeper hole. I'm digging myself a deeper hole. I mean, I really, as I say, this song, yes, it's about politics in the sense that Trump is a political animal, but it's not. It's about a person that's a criminal in my mind. And he's directly responsible for at least 100,000 deaths. I'd say a whole lot more in America because of COVID, because of the way they've mismanaged this crisis, and tried to pretend it wasn't happening and lied and cheated and stolen. And now they're even hiding the figures of who's actually got it and, how the hospitals are going, because they don't want people to know. And, to me, if he was driving a car in as bad a manner, he would be charged with, culpable driving, what is it? It's criminal negligence. He's criminally negligent in charge of a government. But of course, he can never get questioned on that until he gets out. And then you'll see if he ever gets out, if he loses the election, he's going to be in jail probably within a year or two, because the things he's done have been unconscionable. It's just the fact that he can't be charged as president that he's got this sort of get out of jail free card. Won't last a lifetime though.
This COVID thing has derailed your American tour. You would have been off to the United States for a tour at the end of this year. So has that been cancelled now or postponed?
Postponed. We'll see if it's cancelled after this song. This may have affected the chances of getting a visa next time we ask. Especially if Trump gets back in, I doubt we'll be welcome there. But
there's always Canada.
Yeah, well, that's true. I love Canada. Look, it's a strange time for musicians, and other artists. It's terrible. It's a strange time for humanity. The one thing that we have, as a species, is that we are very social beings. And, you know, this is one of the reasons why the internet is able to prey upon us, because people can get cowed into thinking that they actually, you know, their opinion is one of only, you know, one against 100, when it's just one person on a keyboard fighting you as 100 different pretend personalities, which is what they do to you, these bots and these, you know, trolls that's sitting in these factories. But, you know, it's really, it's taken away the thing that we, you know, most cherish in life, to be with each other and to share love and contact, and also the experience of, you know, enjoying art together or whatever, you know, these things, you know, even if you like sport, you know, you can't go to your favorite footy game, whatever, you know, because you might, you know, someone might sneeze on you. It's terrible, but we will get through it. It's there's positive signs now on the vaccine side. We know the science is still very, you know, jury is out on so much about this disease, you know, including how much young people suffer from it. You know, people have been fool's paradise thinking that because they don't die of pneumonia, that somehow they've gotten out of, you know, not having to worry about COVID-19. But there are signs now that majority of people that catch it, even after they recover from that pneumonia, you know, the symptoms, can still have debilitating illnesses that go on. Well, they don't know when they end yet, because they're still so early in the epidemic. But young people as well, you know, there's signs of people that don't show symptoms having all this scarring in their lungs, and, you know, obviously all these other changes in their liver and their heart and their arteries. It's frightening what's going on with this disease, and you know, we need to beat it, but we certainly cannot pretend that it's not happening, you know, like people are trying to do, and act like it's not their problem, and, you know, it's only the old people who should get away out of the way and let the, you know, the world go ahead without them. It's a nonsense, you know. Sorry, I've sort of rambled a little bit there, but anyway,
no, it's
it is
stuff.
just, yeah. Well, you know, we just have to sit tight for a bit longer, and, you know, obviously Melbourne is really on the cutting edge, you know, at a very difficult point right now, and Sydney's looking like it might enter that same kind of, you know, tunnel very soon. We don't know. We hope not, but, you know, it's certainly. It is like bushfire season, and you know, there's all this fuel out there, which is us human beings. You know, we can just spread it like that, and this disease is insidious because you can spread it without knowing you've got it. That's the thing about it that's been the most scary part of it. You know, is the fact that people can give it to 20 people without having even realised they have it. So you've got to actually pretend that you've got it, even when you don't think you have, just for everyone else's safety.
Have you recorded other songs in the studio? Is this part of an album for 2021?
Yeah, the whole thing is basically working towards an album. We're doing it in a different way this time because, you know, the world has changed in terms of like the way people consume music. We know they consume singles rather than albums generally. I mean, an album is still important, and people, you know, really relate to it. And certainly I, as a consumer of music myself, I love an album. But there's no doubt that the way our business operates has changed because of the way people do listen to music. And the album no longer is the beginning of a promotional cycle. It used to be you'd work in quiet for a whole lot of time, and you'd make an album and you'd release it, and then you'd have singles after that to promote the album, to keep the album in the charts and keep people talking about it. It's now the opposite. People actually, once they're only interested while they don't know what's on the album. They don't want to hear the singles afterwards. So you've got to give them the singles in advance. And, you know, hip hop artists don't ever make albums sometimes, just do singles, and or dance acts, just keep doing singles and no albums. But basically the album wraps it up rather than actually starts the promotional cycle. So that's what we're doing. And it's a bit like when we first started with Stone Age Romeos. We recorded that as a series of singles and then finished it off as an album when we had enough, you know, singles down the track, and we had a bunch of stuff already recorded. Okay, let's go in and do a bunch more tracks and finish off for an album. And we're back to doing that again. So we started last year with the song Answered Prayers in December. And then this single, as I say, was a bit of a surprise to us. It's meant to be a B-side, but it's kind of become a bit bigger than that. And also as a song, you know, as I said, not just the story of it, which is one thing, but just musically, it's really we're kind of quite thrilled by it. And that's the other thing about it too, in terms of the story stuff. I hate political songs generally because they're boring. They're songs that are kind of like medicine. You know, they're just telling a serious topic, and you can't really listen to them after you got the message, because it's kind of, that's actually the content. Whereas for me, the song is a song first, and what it's talking about. Yes, hopefully Trump will be a history, but people can still enjoy this song as being about someone that I really disliked intensely and want to see, go away. I wrote it as a very personal sort of song rather than some sort of story of, me expounding on how to vote. I don't care about that. So anyway, so that's this song that probably will be on the album as well. We're not certain. We may change our mind. We, obviously as we do it this way, we actually can choose later on to go, well, let's not put that song on. Let's put this new one on we wrote, so we may do that as well. We don't know. But there's 2 other singles ready to go. We recorded them at the same time. And as I say, this was kind of meant to be not the single. The next one is the single. This was recorded to be the B-side of. And in some ways it shares a slight similarity in theme. I won't go into it yet, but it's not 100 miles away from it in story. It talks about the modern world and what we are going through and the way people's opinions are so polarized at the moment. But we have other songs as well that we're lined up, and we just waiting for the chance now to go back and work on them some more. The way we did this recording, actually, we had to be delayed a while because we did lock down for a few months after the March thing happened, and everyone said you've got to not do anything, and we cancelled the recording session we had booked in for May, and it wasn't until about the end of May we started to go, we've gotten a pretty good lid on the coronavirus in Australia right now. We can probably, and we've been Zooming with each other. We hadn't seen each other, in person since that whole period. But we sort of started to believe we could trust ourselves. We knew each other had been very diligent, and that we could actually get into a room together, and all we had to do was make sure it was safe to do so. And we were lucky that the rehearsal studio we chose, they've been struggling as well. No one's been playing gigs, so no one's rehearsing. So they gave us a room that we could lock all our gear in and not have anyone use while we weren't there, so we could feel safe about that. And that was the way we were able to record these songs. But now we've actually gone back in our box again because, we're seeing the little upsurge, and we expected it. I mean, the second wave is something that everyone's talked about. And of course, now it's happening. But, maybe in October, we're going to have another think about, look at it again and see where, what's happening health-wise, and whether we can figure out a plan to go and record some more songs and keep going on that plan to get an album out next year. But as I said, we have singles ready to go. So that was it's bought us some time in a way, because we've done what we need to do to kind of keep, making music.
Well, if America doesn't love you after this, Dave, Australia does. So I look forward to maybe
well, I hope so. I don't want to give people a shits. I'm sorry about that. We didn't mean to be boring you about, about politics. And we don't generally, as I say, there's been an undercurrent in our music all the way along if you really look at it, but we don't hit people over the head. This one's being a little bit more obvious because he's more of a scoundrel, and you just got to name him and shame him, right now, because that's who he is and deserves to be pointed out and, made a fool of. And that's what we're doing. And that's what the video is. The video is funny as well as, it's angry, but it's funny. So many people have been going, Trump and Putin, it's been proved they weren't associated. Well, actually, that wasn't proved by that Mueller inquiry. He just said, I couldn't prove it, but I didn't say I couldn't say it never happened. In fact, it's very suspicious what did happen. But anyway, that's all by the by. But, we did it for a laugh, have Trump and Putin having making out, in a golf buggy. I mean, it's just taking the piss. And, that's what you do to despots and tyrants. You laugh at them. The emperor has no clothes on, ladies and gentlemen. He's naked. He's pretending to be wearing a fine suit. And everyone says, oh, yes, that's a beautiful set of clothes, until a little boy points and says, you're naked. And people finally open their eyes and admit they've been kidding themselves. We're the little boy saying he's naked.
Using humour as a weapon.
Exactly. And as I say, and rock and roll, it's a good song too. That's the other thing. Don't forget. Don't watch the video. Just listen to the song.
No, it's actually a really good musical. It's a very good rock song.
Have you heard the whole song though? I don't think you have. Have you?
Yeah, I've had a link.
Oh, a pre-release.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I heard more than the 30 seconds that we initially had.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. As I say, if some people say it's very classic Gurus, I don't know. I can never tell those things, but it's, certainly got a bit of, bite and energy to it. And that's all we ask for.
We love hearing the Hoodoo Gurus sound like the Hoodoo Gurus.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you, Dave.